Hey, welcome Coyote fans, good day Barra fans. This thing should be mounted to that thing. I wonder why. Tune in. Alright, so my engine mounts done. Or rather the part that bolts the motor are mounted. I'm probably going to put the K-member on it after I spin it around, just because it's going to be in the way. What I'm doing here is, since I'm working alone, it's basically blocked off the engine stand from rolling, and I'm just slowly turning it by, putting some pressure on the torsion on the accessories and just getting it turned around. Once it's right side up, I'm gonna get this thing hanging off of the engine stand, or off the engine hoist again. And once it's hanging off the engine hoist, I'll set it down on my K-member stand, get the transmission bolted up to it with the clutch slave cylinder installed, and we're gonna give it a shot to see if we can get the clutch master cylinder and slave cylinder arrangement tuned in, working outside the car. So this is a big moment in my eyes. I have been just trying to get everything right and documented before I have a hard time finding all the pieces with the engine upside down, etc., or right side up. So anyways, let's get this. Well, something happened. Look at that. One of my old friends came by who's a lot stronger than I am, and I was going to do all kinds of, hook this strap here and spin the engine there kind of thing, and he just reached down and turned it by hand. Thanks, Dan, by the way. Dan Owen stopped by and did that. So, where are we going from here? Let's see, we've got the engine stand gunk on the back of this thing I've got to pull off. I do have a flywheel and a clutch that go on there, and then a bell housing. I'll bolt that all on, I hope. Hopefully it'll be pretty straightforward. I'm not normally Mr. Clutch Install, but at this point in the game, after some of the other stuff I've been through, it doesn't seem all that hard, quite honestly. So I'll install the clutch slave cylinder on this transmission, and bolt the transmission to the engine. See if I'll be checking clearances and everything, and making sure that the clutch throw works with the clutch slave cylinder. And if that all looks good, and I think it will, we will be doing engine fitting in the next 2 or 3 days. So that's huge. Yeah, look at that. had some trouble with my K-member stand setup. Still not happy with it. The engine, I think it's a balance issue with the engine. Once I get the transmission on the engine, I think it's going to settle down with a 3-point setup here. Right now, just trying to balance this engine on this K-member. It's very top heavy. And anyways, I got the engine stand finally disconnected, the components from this, and I'm going to clean that up some and install the flywheel. Okay, there's our flywheel, and I don't know if you can see it. The flywheel comes with weights. There's weights bolted on it already, and you know, more weights. Called Summit Racing. They're always helpful, and confirmed since I have an internally balanced motor, I do not need any weights. So these weights got to come off. Alright, so trip through the interwebs and some searching on Google, of course, and checking my actual manual for this motor, which specifies 75 Newton meters, which translates roughly to 55 foot-pounds of torque. So I went to 60 just to be absolutely certain, and I also used thread lock. So there's that. So the flywheel's on, and the next step is to go get my clutch and the clutch kit that goes with it, and figure out how to install a clutch on a 351 Windsor flywheel. Happy, happy, joy, joy. There's a clutch. This is spec clutch for a 351 Windsor 11-inch flywheel. Whew. To say I'm out of my comfort zone here is a massive understatement. I'm out of my comfort zone. Probably gonna call one of my friends who does this kind of stuff way more often than me and have him assist me putting this thing in there. But we got our flywheel mounted, torqued down. This is next. The bell housing after that. Then I can measure the distance for this clutch slave cylinder. So basically, this is the one that I got out of the Barra, off the Barra transmission. And the one that I got from Summit for whatever application it was, that's very similar. It's hard to tell, but it's about a 1/16 of an inch shorter. It's the same master cylinder otherwise. Has a similar bleeder screw. It had this already attached, which I kind of need some A in line. It did not have a fitting like that. It had a very alien looking fitting. I went and got this AN4, and then I used that to convert to MPT, which is on the back of my clutch master cylinder. So hopefully there's enough line here to make it from they're not a far distance from the clutch pedal to the clutch master cylinder. Anyways, in order to make sure that's all going to work, the big question, which I don't have an answer to right now, is this distance here. I need to know the distance from the end of the travel. Is it contacting the tines of the flywheel? And whenever it's depressed, is it going to have the ability to completely disengage the clutch? Let's hope so. Okay, no joy in Mudville. My spec clutch arrived with the wrong spline count. It's 10 instead of 23. And looking up this part number, it should have a 23 count spline. So pause while we get the right part. Take two. So kind of stuck at the moment, or rather I was. I was up at Summit Racing trying to find out why my clutch arrived with the wrong spline count. This spec clutch came with a 10 spline count clutch, and I need a 23 spline count disc, not a 10 count. That disc you see there is for a ram clutch. Josh at Summit Racing helped me figure out that will work in my application. It's a tight fit. It's going to work. I'm going to borrow my clutch alignment tool. A buddy of mine has one. And get this thing mounted up as soon as I find the bolt kit for an 11-inch Ford clutch. Specifically the 351 Windsor with an 11-inch Ford disc. It's not the same as the 302 because I have that bolt kit and it does not work. So I'm kind of stuck on that, and man, it's kind of frustrating because you take 2 or 3 steps forward and then you take a step back and you're just like, wow. This disc and clutch arrangement is not cheap. And I can't recommend it to anybody doing this swap. I would say as soon as somebody can tell me, hey, I've got a TR6060 with a Barra motor that's, an American application, here's the clutch to buy, I'll listen. But at this point in the game, I'm kind of, stuck buying parts that I can get my hands on. I want something I can get serviced, and I don't have the Australian parts that this motor came with. So that's what's cost me some time and some serious money. That clutch was like $415, and the disc, I believe, was another $165, and I only got it at that price because Summit Racing realized that their website had the wrong spline count for the clutch disc pack, or just the way it worked. So if I can get that done, I'll be happy. Another video talking about these safeties I'm working on for the K-member, so that I can slide this thing around without wondering if it's going to fall off of its stand. Because once I've got that thing bolted back together and rolling around on the floor, most importantly, I will stick it in this engine bay for the first time for real. And once I've done that, I'm up against some other challenges. For starters, I don't believe that the the rear transmission mount is going to have anything to grab onto. I think I'm going to end up having to fabricate my own rear transmission mount on the body to hold this transmission, especially if I slide it back one more set of bolts on that K-member as Chris Nieves and I have talked about. So speaking of Chris Nieves, if you need one of these motors, he's got them. And he's got the turbocharged ones and so on. So give him a call. There'll be a link in the description of this video to his website. So anyways, that's where I'm at. That's why I'm stuck on my transmission. I've been figuring everything else out, trying to make sure that I've got all my ducks in a row. And I'm trying to get this engine bay as prepped as I can. There's other video about that. I've made a bolt-in lower radiator support. I've got a video coming out about that. And of course, all of the finishing and everything that you see there, that's all going to be on video as well. It's been an interesting past few days just because of all of these problems. For example, something as simple as a pilot bearing. This thing takes an SN 9495 302 pilot bearing, probably small block Ford, I don't know, but it does slide in there. It's not in there right now because I had to clean that up some to fit it in. But Summit didn't have the right pilot bearing. Probably the one down in Australia is my guess. Because it probably has a different flywheel. I don't know. There's a bunch of, I don't know, this is a small block Ford kind of questions being answered. And the problem I've got is there's sort of a metric and SAE no man's land here. That transmission is definitely more metric than SAE. Came out, 2010-ish. This thing is living in the 90s. This is a small block Ford 351 Windsor flywheel. A lot of SAE stuff on it, including, I'm gonna guess, that bolt kit. and it's just one of those things. I mean, I'm trying to get this thing to work, and none of the stuff that normally works. And I'm kind of scratching my head. So I'll be calling Summit tomorrow, see if maybe Ford Racing, see if I can figure out why the pins I've got for this 302 style mounting kit don't work. But there's just a lot of that going on. And as I figure this out, I'll get the thing put back together and I'll be able to do more test fitting. I was really hoping to do that this weekend, but just didn't work out that way. Anyhow, hope you're enjoying these videos. I know I'm kind of going off into the weeds big time, but this is the kind of stuff you run into when you try to do stuff that has never been done, or at least not commonly done, or done the right way. I personally am way out of my element here. I'm not normally welding on stuff all the time. I don't normally put clutches on motors, and so I'm kind of scratching my head on some of this stuff. If you have any answers to some of the questions I've got, I'd appreciate them in the comments. But I suspect that this is, you know, I'm on my own kind of thing, territory. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe.